Hi kids, Miss Margot here. We're going to be talking about two fruits of the Spirit in the next few weeks, patience and faithfulness. And today I want to tell you a story about a man in the Bible who was both patient and faithful. His name was Nehemiah. But before I tell you about Nehemiah, let me tell you a little bit about our story and how it started. God's people wanted a king, and so he gave them King Saul. Saul disobeyed God, and so God let David be king after Saul. David was a good king. David started out as a shepherd. He played the harp for Saul. He killed Goliath, a giant, and he wrote part of the book of Psalms. David also did something else very special. He built up the city of Jerusalem, which he used as his capital. To this day, the city of Jerusalem is called the city of David, after David. And after David came his son Solomon, who continued to build Jerusalem. Solomon's most famous building project was God's temple. After David and Solomon came, there was a series of kings, some of them good and some of them bad. The bad kings led God's people away from God and taught them to worship idols. Through the prophets, God warned his people that they would be punished. They would be invaded and conquered by foreign kings, and their beautiful city would be destroyed. And that is exactly what happened. 586 years before Jesus was born, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon invaded Jerusalem and destroyed God's temple. He burned the city and he had his soldiers tear down the walls. So the city of David was left in ruins for well over 100 years. It's kind of like some of the castles here in Germany, huh? All the leaders of God's people were marched hundreds of miles away to Babylon, where they served the Babylonian and Persian kings. While they were in captivity, they kept the memories of their homeland alive through songs and stories. Some of the Jews rose up to be very important people in their new lands. Nehemiah was one of those people. Nehemiah held a very important position. He was the cupbearer to the king. What would a cupbearer do? Well, let me tell you, it was actually a very, very important job, and it required great trust from the king. The cupbearer tasted all the drinks that came to the king's table to make sure that they weren't poisoned. Back then, many of the kings of the Persian Empire lost their lives through plots and intrigues at court and poisonings and things like that. So the cupbearer needed to be a man of extreme loyalty who couldn't be bribed at any price. Nehemiah served the king very faithfully, but his heart was elsewhere. He thought about Jerusalem, and it made him sad that it was lying in ruins. He longed to go to the homeland that he had never even seen. King Artaxerxes noticed his sad face and asked, "Why do you look so sad?" Nehemiah had been praying for a long time about his desire to return to Jerusalem, and he realized that God might be ready to answer his prayer. So he replied, "May the king live forever." Now that's what you said back then to the king if you didn't want to get your head chopped off. So, may the king live forever. How can I not be sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruin, he asked. "What do you want?" the king asked. Nehemiah sent up a quick, quiet prayer, and then he asked the king to let him go to Jerusalem to rebuild the city walls. The king gave his permission, and besides that, he gave letters to Nehemiah to take to the governors along the way with instructions that they were to protect Nehemiah while he traveled, and they were to give him wood that he could use to build the new gates. Nehemiah was overjoyed. He had prayed for this opportunity for a long time, and God made it happen. After a very long trip, Nehemiah arrived at Jerusalem. He rode around the city and looked at all the places that needed repair. You cannot imagine what a mess he found. Huge boulders had tumbled in every direction. They were charred and cracked from the fires from so long ago. There was rubble and useless rocks that would have to be cleared away before the new walls could even begin to be built up. But when Nehemiah told the people that lived there about his plan to rebuild the walls, they were excited and they were glad to help with the work. Nehemiah organized different groups of families to work on different parts of the wall. But Sanballat and Tobiah were two enemies of God's people, and they made trouble for the people who were building the wall. Despite the threats from their enemies, the people faithfully kept on building. They worked with all their hearts because they knew that this was God's work. And little by little, the wall grew. It grew taller and taller. Then Sanballat and Tobiah decided to get an army together and attack Jerusalem. So Nehemiah posted guards all around the wall. Half of the people worked while the other half watched. They were ready to fight. Nehemiah said to everyone, "Don't be afraid of our enemies. Remember that God is with us." So the people kept on working faithfully, and the wall grew some more. Everyone worked from first light of morning until the stars came out at night. And the last section of the wall was finally complete. When the wall was finished, Nehemiah and his helpers were so faithful in their work that rebuilding the wall only took 52 days. And let me read what Nehemiah said when the wall was complete. So the wall was finished on the 25th day of Elul in 52 days. And it happened when all of our enemies heard about it and all of the nations around us saw these things, they were very disheartened in their own eyes, for they perceived that this work was done by our God. So Nehemiah was patient, and he waited for the right time to go and build the wall, and he was faithful to do what he thought was right and what God had wanted him to do. So in the next few weeks, we're going to talk more about patience and faithfulness, but we've got some other things, some coloring pages and games that you'll be getting in the next few weeks, and I just can't wait till we can get together again at chapel. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.